public safety, environment, government, and state personnel. The North Carolina League of Conservation Voters awarded Keever the 2012 Rising Star Award for her work in the legislature. Keever was elected first vice chair of the North Carolina Democratic Party in 2013. Keever was elected party chair this year. And now I want to introduce her interviewer. Joan McCarter is senior political writer for DailyKos, writing from her home in Idaho. McCarter focuses on legislative and policy issues for the site. After a stint working for the then Representative Ron Wyden in both his district and Capitol Hill offices, McCarter obtained a master's degree in Russian studies from the University of Washington's Henry M. Jackson School of International Studies. She worked as a writer and instructional designer at UW before signing on full-time with DailyKos in 2007. So ladies, if you'd like to come up.
Okay.
Oh, well, that will help. Yeah.
Hello.
You're on. We're on.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for sticking through after lunch and being here today. What a great morning, huh? Really impressive and really motivating. And we're going to try to keep that up in the afternoon. As was yesterday. You're in a room full of activists and would-be activists.
Lots of them are people I know and friends, and so hello all of you from North Carolina.
So for the handful of folks who don't know you, why don't you tell them a little bit about your path to activism? How you got to be here?
Oh, well, you know, this started back when I was about 7 years old, and I had my picture in the paper with my mother and with 3 other young girls because my mother was involved in the statewide League of Women Voters, and so we got our pictures in the paper for being, there were 3 of us that were about 7, and our ages added up to 21. So, you know, I was hooked from the beginning. 7 years old in the newspaper, voting, what more could you do?
I know the feeling. Daughter of a state party chair, I was going door to door at 5, so.
No, but I've been a teacher was a teacher for 25 years, and another thing that got me involved was I taught social studies 8th grade, and we always did election units, and there were a couple of things involved with my students, but one of them, when I looked at the pictures in the history books, and it looked at the picture of the North Carolina House of Representatives, and it was all white males, and so that just sort of got me, that wasn't quite right either. We needed more diversity. So that was among the things. My students felt like politicians were all awful people and just wanted to put their hands in your pocket and take your money, and I wanted to prove to them that that was not true. And so I ran for county commissioner back in 1992, and I see several of our county commissioners here now. And so back with Holly Jones and Newman. So that started me on a path that just keeps on going.
Excellent. You mentioned education. North Carolina has a pretty history education background. First state university here.
Right.
And the education is key to this state. So it must be kind of difficult now in the current administration.
It's very difficult, and that's really why I have gone on to do the statewide politics, because as a teacher, it was just more than I could bear. When I went into the legislature in 2010, I was elected, and you know, I came from being so proud of North Carolina that we had this wonderful university system, and we had a wonderful system of public education. And I grew up in that public education system and was very proud of it. My mother taught at the first community colleges. You know, education was just a part of me, and I know it's the foundation for our economy and for our being able to take the next step. It levels the playing field. So when I went into the legislature in that bad off year of 2010, and I saw what they began doing immediately to dismantle education, public education, that just angered me. And when I got gerrymandered out, of course that angered me too, and so I figured I would just go find another way to get back at these people for doing the wrong thing. So I'm getting back at them ever since. And so I'm trying to help do the right thing and get us back on track.
Coming from Idaho, I understand that large states, particularly large red rural states, are more than one thing. They're more than one state. Can you talk about the different North Carolinas, how it's not even completely like all the other southern red states, and a little bit how you approach organizing in a state like this? And let's add to the success you've had in Buncombe County in the last election in the State House.
Right.
So how do you take a success like that and translate it to the different parts of the state?
Well, I think in any red state or blue state, you have your urban areas that tend to be bluer and your more rural areas that tend to be redder. And, I don't think of North Carolina as a red state, even though we have, a red governor and a red House and a red Senate. I still think of us as dark, dark purple.
Richard Burr.
Well, see that too, I know. But it's in your psyche though, Joan. Yeah. I don't accept that we are a red state. Do any of you accept North Carolina?
We want it to be red in the right way.
We voted and we won.
Right. And I've gotten so off track of what you even asked, I forgot what you asked, Joan.
Let's make it simple.
Okay.
The success you had here in Buncombe County, and how do you extend that?
Well, I would say that Buncombe County, we had a lot of things going for us. We had excellent candidates. We had wonderful volunteers. We have a very organized Buncombe County Democratic Party. Some of our officers are here. Tom Sullivan's our first vice chair. I'm sure we have some other people in here that I should introduce. Jay Quinn's over there. He's been very active in the Buncombe County Democratic Party. But the point is, we had excellent candidates. We had people, lots of people from all walks of life who got involved in the campaigns and who volunteered in those campaigns. We had a lot of outside money. I'll have to say the independent expenditures that came in to fill the vacuum that the North Carolina Democratic Party had left came in, and they did some really good advertising. They raised some good money. It was a joint effort by many, many people. And I think that the same thing happened in Wake County, our capital, in Raleigh. They got in all of their commissioners, Democratic commissioners. So I think what I would say to you is we have to work together. And I know that there are many times when we feel we have animosities, we have grudges, we have different feelings. We're mad for something that happened years ago. But the point is, and my minister said this to me, and it made so much, I've said it to all of us, but I took it to heart, was that even as we disagree, we must stay connected, because we don't win if we don't stay connected. And so, if we could just accept that, just think about that for a minute. No matter how mad you are at somebody, no matter how big a grudge that was you had 20 years ago when they didn't vote for you for whatever, it's time for us to come back on board. And I think I would say this in every state, because I know all over North Carolina, we have splits within the Democratic parties. And, that's natural and that's normal, but we can't afford to let that separate us right now. Right now, we have to get on board. And I would say that to all of us in the audience, wherever you are from, this is a time that we all have to get on board, and we have to see through whatever our differences may be and come together and at least hang together for this next election, because it's just way, way too important, particularly here in North Carolina.
You just provided a wonderful segue into my next question.
Great.
We've heard from NAACP activists, we've heard from LGBTQ activists this morning, talking about how hard it can be to vote, how being organized can be so difficult for the people who most need to vote, most need to have their voices heard. Mary Hooks, who was here earlier, had a great way of saying it. Having voters vote their courage, because it's not always easy. And it can take courage even to register. how's the party going to work to stretch out to NAACP members, to those organizers, to LGBTQ organizers? How is it going to try to bring all of this in beyond 2016?
Well, one of the things that I say to my constituents throughout the county, I have what I consider the 5 C's, and just real briefly, those are candidates. We have to have good candidates. The second is we have to have our counties. Our counties have to be organized throughout the state. We have 100 counties here in North Carolina, and every single one of them matters. Every single one of them has to be organized. The precincts have to be organized. The third C is cash. We've got to raise money. You know, unfortunately, money is an issue, and it really sort of is the foundation of our politics these days, and I hate that it's that way. But having run for Congress twice and lost twice, and trying to fight the good fight and not recognize money as being quite as important as it is. Bottom line is money matters. But the fourth one is collaboration, and I think that's what you're talking about. And we do, within every county, they collaborate with the other organizations that are in their county. So, you know, from the statewide, I can't say you need to go out and work with NAACP in every single county, but I could say that in Buncombe County because we have our brand new chair of the president of the NAACP right here with us. And we have really strong GLBTQ people with us too. Aaron Sarver is here right in the front row. And so, you know, we have such strong leaders here in Buncombe County, and I think that's one of the things that helps us as well. So, but in every county, those county chairs, those county officers know who the people in their county are, who the leaders are, what the organizations are that can help them. So I think it's a matter of collaborating and knowing who is out there and who can help you. And then the fifth thing is communication. The fifth C is communication. And we need to continue to communicate with all of our people, and with our own people in our party, people, you know, DailyKos, that's a means of communication just all in itself. And so those are the 5 things that I talk about when I go out into the county. So that's 5 C's. Do y'all remember what they are?
Probably the biggest barrier, and we had a great presentation on this morning, for these folks who need to have that courage to vote is voter suppression. And I know that we've got numerous court cases pending right now. How does the party prepare to try to deal with the fact that so many of your voters are going to be kept away from the polls?
Well, one of the things that we're excited about that we are working on right now that's just started is called the Voting Rights Institute. And we are getting lawyers statewide, but the DNC is going to help us come in and train our lawyers in all the voting rights acts and in all the laws that pertain to voting. And we're looking at the targeted polls where we know we've had problems before. And we were trying to get a volunteer lawyer at the poll to sit there on voting day, to be there with the table set up with, it says NCDP lawyer, ask me if you need help. So that if anything occurs at that voting place, if somebody's turned away or, you know, or said that they don't have the right identification or whatever, then we've got somebody right there on the spot to help them through that problem. And we hope that'll do 2 things. We hope that'll, number 1, sort of intimidate people so that they won't try to pull anything on us. And 2, if they do, then we've got somebody right there. It's much better than having somebody in a war room, you know, across the state in Raleigh saying, oh, well, we'll write this down and we'll get back to you. No, we're going to have our people right there, right then with the computer and all the information they need to take care of our voters. So I'm hoping that
That's fantastic on election day and so necessary. How do you, what about before? What about voter registration? What about early voting? What about all of these big barriers that are being put up?
And those are all being taken to court.
Yeah.
They're all being tried. We're keeping an eye on those. The courts will have to decide ultimately, but we're working very hard to try to communicate with all of our, we have a monthly call with our county chairs, a monthly call with our district chairs. Our communication, we're trying to keep the communication going, and I think that's one of the best things that we can do in any endeavor is to communicate what our problems are and to stay in touch with each other. So, but that, what I would say.
I could go on all day, but you guys undoubtedly have questions, so. Check mine.
Anita, Isaac has not just. Oh, okay, I'll come to you second. I think you had your hand up first. Chris, where are you? I need.
It's on.
It is? Make it short, yeah.
Is education, public education in North Carolina, is the broad university system dead?
No. Absolutely not.
I've heard that the university system is now being focused so that you go from college directly into the job. There are none of the liberal arts, none of the amenities of a broad cultural education. It's all specialization, more like a technical school.
No, I would say that certainly the math and
Which is run by, which is run apparently by the man who has bought up all the dollar stores.
you're talking about Art Pope, right?
Yeah.
He's your version of the Koch brothers, right?
Right, Art Pope is our Koch brothers, yes. I would say no. Fortunately, it is not dead. You're in Buncombe County right now, home of the University of North Carolina at Asheville, which is a liberal arts college. Certainly, I would say that the maths and the sciences and the engineering are things that we have been working on that are good things that we do want to increase at the university level and all across the state. I would say that yes, probably there are forces out there trying to kill it, but we won't let it die.
I don't have a question, I have a comment. I don't know what you were doing in 1964, but in 1964, I went to Mississippi as a field secretary for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And attitude we took, and I want all of us to take this in. Whether we win or not in court, we're going to win. We will not let any barrier stop us from voting.
Yes.
Ain't no mountain high enough.
Yeah.
Ain't no ocean deep enough to stop us. We have to work hard to get around any barrier that they put forth in front of us.
Isaac's running for county commissioner, by the way, in Buncombe County.
The last time we had the election day, I think there's several of us who were, I'm sure many of us, were all day at a voting location. And over, Andy and I would see people that would go in and come out very quickly, and we find out they didn't get to vote because, no, you can't vote here, you're supposed to vote over there. And they just send you out. And they'd say, this is where you have to vote. Maybe they know where it is, maybe they don't. And maybe they're coming in an hour break from their job. And I think they should be required, if they're going to say, you may not vote here, and the person didn't know this, they have to be required to tell them, here's the map that'll take you there. Something like that to make up for the fact that that's the last thing that I thought was talking about, was the rearranging of where the voting posts are. And if you don't know, get the wrong place, it's not fair. Yeah.
You're
They're
right.
not doing it, we have to do it.
Right, we have to do it within our own counties, within our precinct workers. This is why it's so important to have good poll workers there, to have the lawyers there. If somebody comes out and it's turned away, they can immediately find out where they need to go and why, what the problem was.
But I was going further back than that. I was saying, if the person that you go to in there who says, you may not vote here, this is the wrong place for you to vote, that person should be required to give you information. Go right, turn left, go through this. To the place where you can vote at that time. That person should have, not they have to go outside and find somebody.
Right. And I'm really surprised that is not already a requirement, that they don't do that. So we need to, but that's why we have a Democrat judge and a Republican judge at every poll, and every Democrat judge should have that information, should know. We should have those lists. It's all on computer.
They're not giving it to them. We're printing out
Matt, be so hard.
Doc Doc?
Hi, Patsy. I'm Bill Busa, and I'm kind of blindsiding you here because, is this on? I gave a talk this morning analyzing distance to poll for all 6.5 million voters in North Carolina, and there are a lot of disparities. But one thing, my colleague and I, when we were doing these analyses, we were trying to understand how is it organized? Is it organized, and how is it organized to give voters who have trouble getting to the poll a ride to the poll? In your experience with the Democratic Party, is that systematically and well organized? Is it haphazard? Is it not happening at all? And what could we do to make it better, especially in the counties where there are dramatic disparities between black voters' distance to poll and white voters' distance to poll? What's the situation today, and what can we do to make it better in terms of driving those people to the polls?
Well, my experience has been in Buncombe County, and so obviously we have people coming out of our ears who want to drive people to the polls. That seems to be one of the easiest things that we can get people to do in terms of volunteering. To answer your question, I think that would be another thing that is done county by county, and it's certainly something that we can emphasize, but that is an expectation and part of the Get Out the Vote strategy that every single county must have. And in collaboration with other organizations that are also doing the same thing. The problem is, we don't want to duplicate efforts, but we do want to make sure that we cover the ground and that we get everybody to the polls. And so phone banking is such an important part of elections, because in those initial phone banks, in those initial calls, you find out which way people lean, so you find out who you want to make that extra effort to get to the polls. You find out whether or not they're going to need help, whether or not they have information. So I would say that right now, we need to be making those calls. We don't wait until a month before the election to do all the work. We're trying to begin doing the work now.
So, even at the level of, we can give you the names and addresses of all the voters who are more than 10 kilometers from the polls and didn't vote in the last election, and are Democrats.
Yeah.
And there should be maybe proactive outreach to those people, not just phone banking, but mailing them things, letting them know there's driving available, things of that nature.
Give us the list.
Okay.
This fellow and Ms. Burchard.
So I'm in Florida, but I'm a poll inspector. So I work at the polls during the elections. And I go to precinct 224, which is the blackest precinct in Pinellas County. And being the poll inspector, I've had several times Tea Party guys come to inspect the polls, but when they see me there, they're much less inclined to try to be hostile. But I will tell you, to answer your question, and I just looked it up on North Carolina law, I believe in the case of at least Florida, if someone isn't supposed to vote at that precinct, they're given a printout of not only the polling location, but the specific directions from that location to the precinct. And I believe that's the case that's supposed to happen here in North Carolina.
It should be everywhere.
We need to go to the election.
Florida, which is pretty darn red. We can manage to do this.
Thank you.
Just a request for those of us that aren't fortunate enough to be in a county where everyone is organized and you have lots of volunteers. Anything that can be done on the state level so that every county doesn't have to reinvent the wheel, say this is our protocol, this is how we think you can handle this. Anything organizational that you can give us, any communications materials that are printed out, any training for the non-lawyers on how to do this correctly would be really appreciated.
Tom Sullivan.
We're working on that right now.
Right, Tom Sullivan is working. You are, aren't you, Tom?
Yeah.
Very quickly, Patty, we in Buncombe County bucked the odds and went blue this last election. We sent home the most powerful Republican in the safest district. He was going to be the speaker, and we sent him home. Can you talk to that a little bit? He was particularly nasty.
I can just say that there was so much animosity towards this individual that there were all kinds of organizations besides the Democratic Party that got involved. We had the water people. I know Barry Summers is here somewhere. You know, we had people who were interested in different issues all working together to get rid of this person. And on top of that, we had an excellent candidate who was running against this person, and that makes a difference. So it was not easy. It was, you know, I worked polls myself, I made phone calls, I canvassed, and I was not alone. I mean, you know, there were just so many people that did this. And so I think once other counties realize that it does make a difference, that knocking on doors does make a difference, that personal contact, if you know and care about your candidate, and you know who your candidate is running against, and you know and you don't care for that person, you can speak from the heart. But I really, really believe that politics is emotional, and people vote not because they get something in the mail. They vote because they made some kind of personal, emotional connection to the candidate, and it was either through you because you knocked on the door or you called, or the candidate did it himself or herself. But politics is very emotional, and we need to remember that. And we need to remember that this is about love. Yes.
I mean, I've been helping in Ferris County for a long time doing the data work. And so I enter data. And so you're reading the sheets that somebody else has worked. And a lot of times you come across one, this person's mad for being contacted so many times. Right. You need to add a radio so that the persons that are talking on the phone and door knocking can put this down. This person's going to vote Democrat, but you're driving them crazy.
Canvassing 101. Absolutely. Thank you very much. We appreciate your having me here. Are you going to be able to stick around?
Probably not. I'm not home very often, so I'm going to go back and spend a little time with my husband. I'm trying to keep my marriage going.
So, yeah, I'm sure you can all contact her at the party, right? With your questions.
Patsy Keever at ncdp.org. And if any of you are going to be around on October 17th, I'd like to say we're having a Western Gala with Jennifer Granholm as our speaker. So if you're interested in that, go to ncdp.org and join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next segment is Exploring the Power of Local Media, featuring Scrutiny Hooligans blogger Tom Sullivan, local radio host Jeff Messer, and the urban news publisher Johnny Nelson Grant. Our moderator today is our North Carolina state leader for the DailyKos Connects initiative. I'll just begin to tell you a little bit about each one of them. Randall Thompson and his wife Joy